Welcome to the next in our series of COVID-19 videos. I'm Helen Smart, I'm a solicitor at the Wilkes Partnership, and today I'm talking to Katie Briggs, who's an associate solicitor in our property litigation team. Katie is going to be talking us through the changes that have been implemented with the COVID-19 situation in relation to commercial properties. So Katie, how has COVID-19 affected the relationship between commercial landlords and tenants?
Well, as everyone will be aware, the impact has been massive with all of the tenants in the retail sector. Everything's had to completely close down, so no one's trading. So you've got all the restaurants and pubs closing. They're not able to bring any money in or create some profit, and that has a knock-on effect for paying any rent. So what the government legislation that has been brought in, the Coronavirus Act 2020, provides for is that tenants during the period of lockdown, which at the moment is until the 24th of June, means that they don't have to pay rent during this period. It still remains due and outstanding, so it's not a rent-free period, but it does give some breathing space to tenants that have been affected by the pandemic and the lockdown. It also restricts, during this period, landlords going in and re-entering the property so that they'd effectively forfeit the lease and bring it to an end on the basis of tenants not paying any of the rent and breaching the lease.
And what about if you are a tenant and you can't pay, it's effectively just paused for now, presumably? Yeah, it is just paused, so it's not a rent-free period. It's still, as soon as the lockdown ends, that rent is going to be due and payable to that landlord. Anything they've done during this period will also not waive the right to forfeiture for the landlord at a later date. It's just a period of pausing the effects of everything. And if you are a commercial landlord, is there anything you can do about a tenant who's not paying rent? Well, initially at the beginning of the lockdown, before all of the legislation was brought in, landlords could still issue things called statutory demands against their tenants when they fail to pay rent, or issue winding up petitions against limited companies if they wanted to bring them to a head and force them to pay rent. The latest guidance from the government has suggested that that is not allowed, and they haven't actually enacted the legislation just yet, but you can't actually issue the statutory demands or winding up petitions for the unpaid rent during this period and then look to enforce that. So that does restrict what a landlord can do. It also restricts the use of bailiffs, but the only other options available that landlords might want to consider is county court proceedings for a money claim on the rent that remains unpaid, any rent deposit that they might want to draw down and then get the tenant to top up later on, or alternatively, if there's a guarantor under the lease that you might want to consider pursuing and asking them to pay the rent during this period is another option. And obviously the courts have been heavily impacted by COVID-19, like the rest of us, and it's affected them as much as it has everyone else. If you have a breach of lease during this time, will the courts still deal with that? At the moment, they're not dealing with anything except for emergency injunctive proceedings. So if something's really serious and you need it issued and dealt with by the court, then that will still be picked up and you can have remote hearings by video link or telephone hearings. But otherwise, if it's a breach of the lease and you're looking to gain possession of the property, they're allowing you to issue those proceedings if it's not unpaid rent that you're pursuing. And then there's an immediate stay of the proceedings for a 90-day period. So you're not really going to get any progress, and there are significant backlogs at the court already. And is there any enforcement action you could take outside of the courts? I think the most effective way that I've been advising landlord clients recently is to engage with the tenants to see if they can strike up a deal for monthly payments or easing off the payments during this period and then entering into a repayment plan for when lockdown ends, and then incorporating that into a side letter so that you're not varying the lease itself and it's not going to affect the impact of that. Otherwise, it's just trying to negotiate and remind them that as soon as the lockdown ends, that you will be entitled to go in and forfeit the lease and it will be a breach.
And if you've got an ongoing dispute, obviously with the courts being so delayed and having these backlogs, is there anything you can do in relation to trying to resolve those disputes?
Sure. I mean, now would be the perfect opportunity to really sit down and think about the dispute that you have got, because if you can't progress it through the courts, you may as well be more proactive and see if you can settle it by alternative means. Mediation is a very popular way of doing things, and during lockdown you can have virtual mediations now, and that's been really quite successful, and is definitely something I would strongly advise people considering to settle the disputes.
Brilliant. Okay, well, Katie and her team are still working, so if you do have any questions about what we've discussed today, then feel free to contact her. Her details will appear at the end of this video. So in the meantime, thank you very much for watching, and thank you, Katie, for answering my questions.
Okay, thank you.